Hello my pouring friends. It's time for us to regather and mix up our paints. So yesterday we had heaps of fun making our pouring medium, and it's been 24 hours, and I like to leave my pouring medium for that period of time. Oh, my table's around the wrong way and banging my knees. How annoying. I'll cope, won't I? Anyway, let's get on to it. Today I've decided to demonstrate the mixing of 3 paints, maybe 4. We'll see how we go. The first one being the big global paints, like the 1 litre. It's an impasto, so it's quite thick, and the other 2 I've got also of global are impastos as well, and I just want to really show you how to bring your paint up to consistency so that it is ready to go for you to add your pouring medium, because we hear this recipe thrown around, but it's really hard to know what it means unless you've seen it, and that is bring your paint up to pouring consistency. Well, what does that mean? Well, what it means is you get your paint out, you bring it up to pouring consistency by adding water slowly and surely and getting the paint to a creamy consistency, and then from that you make you mix your pouring medium in with the paint. And for me, I like to use 1 part paint, 2 parts pouring medium. It doesn't matter what paint I've started off with. And one of the other things that I want to talk about is that it doesn't matter what brand of paint you're going to use, the process is exactly the same, which is why I have also brought out a couple of other types of paint, which when they come out of the tube are already of a different consistency to these paints here. So from this point on, I'm going to try and stop talking about the actual brand of paint, because the process is exactly the same. We are bringing our paint to consistency so that it is ready to add with our pouring medium and ready to go for a beautiful pour. So yesterday I demonstrated how I make 2 of my recipes, but I want to also add in, I make heaps of different types of recipes. I've got one here that's PVA and Floetrol only. It's a little bit thicker than the one that we used yesterday, and for me this one sort of sits higher and thicker on the canvas once poured, and it once again holds beautiful plump cells, and you can water it down a little bit and you play with it. There's another pouring medium that I use that's really thin. Look at that one. And this one's inspired by Gina DeLuca, and she uses a really thin consistency with her pouring medium, and that's how she manages to stretch out and get those incredibly huge big cells that have that wonderful illusion of depth. But my basic pouring medium, which we went through on yesterday's video, is simply the one that we're going to use today. 3 parts Floetrol, 2 parts PVA, and a 0.5 part of H2O water. And what I like to do is put my pouring medium into a much more manageable container than the one that I mixed it all in. And I just give it a tip like that, because this had massive mixing yesterday. Then I add it into a container that's much more manageable, and I'm going to spill it everywhere. No, I'm not. Just like this, so easy, just decantering, and it just makes it so much easier. Like, this is quite heavy and difficult to control when you're mixing up smaller amounts of paints. And then into this I add a marble or these gemstones, and the reason I do that, just add 1, it just helps for when the time comes for you to use this, so you don't have to shake it vigorously. You just tilt and do this, and you know that that little marble or stone is actually running through the paints, making everything nice and smooth and creamy if it's been sitting and separated a little bit over a period of time. And that means that you're not getting air bubbles, or you'll still probably get a few air bubbles, but not as many as if you were having to shake it. Or don't shake it. Like, you might feel inclined to shake it. You don't need to. Okay, containers to pre-mix your paint in. It doesn't matter what you use as long as it's airtight. My two favorite containers to use are these little plastic mini milk bottle containers which hold 300 mils, and I love these, just love them, because I like to be able to squirt and control squirt on some of my different other arts too. And these are 200 mils, and these are great because they've already got the measurement on the side. These ones don't have the measurement on the side, so you just get your good old measuring jug, not drug, though isn't painting a drug, but that's a whole different story. Get your measuring jug, add 100 mil, 200, then another 100 mil, and then another 100, so you've got your 300. You probably could just do 100 and 300 if you were doing this process, which is 1 part paint, 2 parts pouring medium. So I'll empty this, not that we'll be using that water, but we will be using this container. Move this out of the way to over here. And what I like to mix my paints up with is water that's got a bit of Floetrol in it. And what I tend to do is, I mentioned it in yesterday's video, is get some water, pop it into my Floetrol container and give it a bit of a shake, and then put it in here, and I use this to bring my paints up to consistency. I just think that it helps. So without further ado, let's get going. The first thing that I want to do is show you some of the different types of paint consistencies so that you can see what we're actually doing. The first one I guess we'll do is the black, and I'll just do a squirt of this out, and I'll try and let it drop so you can see and know for your own paint. That's about all I need in that. So we'll just actually start and go through the whole process with one paint at a time. So that was the thick paint on a stirring stick. That's how it comes off. Now we get our water that's got a little bit of Floetrol in it and slowly add it. And I really do recommend you do it slowly. You might feel inclined to hurry it along, but I found that if you add the water, too much water in, it actually causes lumps to come in, which do come out easily, but it's just a bit of extra unnecessary work. Though, you know, many people have different preferred ways of doing this. So here we go, adding some more. You'll be surprised how much water your paint actually takes to get to pouring consistency. Stir, stir. This still is not even near it. I'll show you. Well, it's getting there. Closer than I actually thought, but much too thick. And you should be able to see that yourself. Bit more water. Stir, 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 stir. Okay, it's got a few lumps in it that I saw. It's not quite all mixed in yet, but that's it. It's beautiful. And that is called bringing your paint to pouring consistency. This paint now is pretty much the same consistency as the pouring medium. And that's what this is all about, just bringing the paint to pouring consistency. And we've done it with the black. And so what I'll do to make this part much easier or straightforward is add it into this container here, which has 200 mils, but for this exercise I'm going to add 50 mils of the black and then 100 mils of the pouring medium, and I will have in total 150 mils ready to go of black pre-made. I'm just going to turn that so I can see the line better. Okay, that's it now. And now adding my pouring medium. Well, I might actually take the lid off so that it doesn't take so long. And if you've got one of these and you feel inclined to squeeze it, don't, because sometimes the lid can explode off. There we go. Add a stone in. Don't add it in before you do that mixing because it adjusts the visual measure. And on the notion of visual measure, just know that you can actually weigh your paints as well. And I might do a separate video doing that just so that we don't get mixed up. Now, another thing that I just want to talk about briefly while I give this a little shake, and this is pretty much all it needs because it's again got the stone in it. We're just going to clean the side of this. I pick up a couple of towels per month from the op shop and just have them on the side ready for me to wipe my hands on, and then I get rid of it. I don't wash them because I don't like the idea of the acrylic paints going through the water system. Alright, that's our black done. Get your marker and mark them as you go. So this is black, and I will just put pouring medium, the homemade one. I'll know which one that is because I have quite a, like as I was talking about before, I have a few pouring medium recipes that I like to use. So there we go. It's quite straightforward once you get your head around it, but it's much easier to see, isn't it? So what we'll do now is that I'll use a different type of paint so that you can see how I bring this one to consistency. This is a brand of paint in Australia, both of these are. Okay, and look, this paint's quite much thinner than the one we just used. Now it's got 75 mils in there and I only need 50 mils, so I know not to use much more than that because I will be adding some water, but not too much. Remember, I'm not just adding water, I've got to keep reminding myself to say it's the water with some Floetrol. Now this hardly needs anything. It's just the tiniest bit too thick. If I use this in a pour, I might get some effects and even some little cells, this, just straight into my pouring medium, but because it's just that tiny little bit too thick, it would be very difficult to tilt and my cells wouldn't stretch out or even naturally flow out. So mix, 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 mix. And that's done. Beautiful, beautiful. I'll get my container and add 50 mils in. And my next one that I'm going to mix up will be one of my all-time favorite colors. So I'm going to use a bigger container because I'm going to mix up more of it. And it's a color called Bling, and it's gold, and it comes through beautifully on your paints. It doesn't sink, and it's an Australian brand. And I said I wasn't going to talk about the brands, but there I go, talking about them again. Okay, bringing this up to 150, so that was 1 part paint, 2 parts pouring medium. Add a stone, find the lid, give it a little swivel, close the lid. Get my marker, and that's titanium white, tight white. You know, I do write which type of white it is because, you know, do you know there are many types of whites, and titanium is an absolutely opaque white. It's why we tend to use it mostly with our layering. It means that you can't see through it. It's not translucent. It's difficult for it to break down and other colors to come through it, which is why it really supports and frames up the cells really beautifully. If there's another white out, or there's a few whites out, one that I use is called Chinese white, and it's translucent. So when I mix that in, it allows other colors to come through it, and that's when you get those graded effects in your cells much more. And homemade pouring medium. Very good. The reason that I have got two of these tubs out, even though they're the same brand, I want you to just notice that whilst they're the same brand paint, and even the same, they're called the same type of paint, these paints still have a different consistency. So they're both impastos, both the same brand, but look at this consistency. Versus this one. So they're very different, even though they're called the same thing. So again, I'm just letting you know, you can't go by a recipe because these will take different amounts of water. So I'm wanting 100 mils of the pre-mixed stuff in this. So I reckon a little bit more. The gold's so precious, they don't make it anymore. It was a limited edition. In our pouring group, oh, we all love it. We carry on like two Bob watchers. I've decided to demonstrate making black, white and gold because in our group today we were talking, one of our members posted a beautiful landscape that was seemingly black, white and lots of hues of yellow, and we've decided to do a black, white and gold pour today, which is what we do impromptuly if we have time. You know, we know that everybody's busy. Most people don't have the luxury of having the opportunity to pour even on a daily basis. But there's a few of us who are in a stage in our life or have just circumstances around us that give us the time to be able to dedicate to pouring, and we love it. And I'm one of them. Very, very, very fortunate. I've worked very hard to be able to be in this position, though it's not a matter of good luck. And I think that's the case for quite a few of us who are in this fortunate position. Oh, so who's going to put the radio on out the back? Really? All right, that's beautiful. Could probably do with a little bit more mixing just to make sure those last lumps are out. Loving that. That's up at consistency. I just hope that I've made 100 mils of it. Okay, so in this goes. If I haven't, I will not keep making this whilst you guys are watching. On, will I? Yeah, I will. I can fast forward this bit. I'll stop talking and then I'll fast forward it. No, I'm not going to really stop talking. No, I am. Alright, it's just a little bit under the 100, so I'll just go a little bit under the 300. So bringing that all the way up, well, not quite because of the not quite 100 ml. Pop a stone in it. I must say, I think I do prefer these now that I've used both types. Just sometimes they get stuff stuck in the tube, and I just like being able to see. Now, what else did I want to talk about? Some people wonder if their paints are going to change colour because they might appear to look a little bit lighter than the original colour once it's all mixed up. By the way, have a look at that beautiful gold, would you? All mixed up. I don't know if you noticed, but many of them go a bit yellow and whatnot, but this just holds its metallic really, really superbly. They might appear to go a little bit lighter, but that's because you've added this pouring medium, which appears to be white but dries clear. So it does go back to its original color, as long as you haven't added, you know, too much pouring medium to your paint to begin with. This is one of my favorite colors, aside from the gold, that I use a lot to support up my background colors. It's a color called Deep Sea. I should know it off by heart, but you know. Can you see how that is coming through on the side of the cup? Oh, it's such a beautiful, beautiful color for me. I really love it. It's not a pouring consistency yet. So adding a bit more water and Floetrol, giving it a stir. Now, if you happen to over add water and it gets a bit thick, just add a bit more paint. And you can always keep your paints that have been brought up to consistently separate if you didn't have enough containers, just using a smaller container and putting them away. Making sure you mark it so you don't accidentally think it is pre-mixed completely with its pouring medium. Though you probably know, because you might wonder why you've left such a little bit. Although a lot of people do collect little bits of paint, and so you should. There's no reason why you shouldn't. By the time you add it all together, you do have enough to do quite a good canvas. There we go, it's about there. Very good. And I'll add that into the last bit here. So I hope you have found this tutorial on how to bring your paints up to consistency helpful. Let me know in the comments. I got lots of good responses and questions in the previous video about how to make your own pouring medium, and just keep asking away. You know, it can be hard to get it all together when you're on your own and isolated, and we have such a great online community spanning many countries now, and it's just such a fabulous pastime, and so many of us love it. And don't feel isolated, connect up. It's really possible. There are so many different pouring groups. Make sure you join a few that are big so you get lots of variation, and join a few that are smaller so that you can develop some friendships and intimacy within the group. Try not to be like me and join 20 and then you're trying to keep up with so many people. That's a frustration. Oh, guess what? I can feel that I didn't add a stone into this one. So let's open it up, pop it in, put the lid back on, hear this click, there we go, and mark this up. Oops, close that down. Deep Sea. And homemade. Homemade pouring medium. So that's it for today on how we mix our paints. I think in the next day or two I might do another video where we look at how we add our silicone and how much we add, just so that we can slowly build up our really good foundational and technical knowledge, because it's this type of work and understanding that helps your overall pouring outcomes to be the best they can. But as I have already mentioned, make sure you're following a few people who inspire you. Try not to get stuck into the habit of comparing yourself with other people. Allow your paints to do what they want to do and relinquish some of that control. Experiment with different types of pouring mediums and different consistencies, because you will get some astonishing outcomes that were unexpected, and that's a great thing as well. And I think above all, just keep having a lot of fun. All right, that's it for today. See you soon.